So Dr. Chuck Backus was an engineering professor at ASU for 36 years and the founding provost, head administrator of ASU East Poly. He also owned the Quarter Circle U Ranch for 43 years. It's a rugged, all-horseback ranch in the Superstition Mountains, as I mentioned. Chuck committed himself to prove that one can raise quality environment in this environment. He retains ownership of his calves through the feed yard and sells them to a processing plant that markets all-natural premium Angus meat. Last year, 150 calves graded 50% prime, which is very good, and 95% of them qualified for certified Angus beef, meaning premium choice beef. So that's Chuck's bio. Do we have Chuck pulled up? Do we have Chuck in the? We appreciate your patience as we get through all of our technical challenges. And we'll get you pulled up in just a second here, Chuck. As we're doing that, I'll tell you a little bit more. I've worked with Chuck for, I think it's almost 10 years now, which is pretty wild to think about. And Chuck came up to me right after I started in this position and said, I'm an educator. I love to have people out to the ranch. The ranch is about 45 minutes from downtown Phoenix, so it's super convenient for us to have people out there. Please schedule some tours and bring some people out. Well, I took him up on that offer. He might have been a little bit maybe sad after I did, but we've consistently come out to his ranch at least once a year, if not more, and he does a great job of giving us a really fantastic tour. Chuck, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't see your video yet.
Okay, I don't think we started it yet. Do you see a black screen?
I do.
Okay, perfect. So how are you this morning, Chuck?
I'm just fine.
Okay, good. All right, so we'll let you take it away and explain to us all about your ranch.
Okay. Good morning, this is Chuck Backus, and I'm the owner of the Quarter Circle U Ranch. Tiffany said I've owned for 43 years. It's in the rugged Superstition Mountains, about 50 miles east of Phoenix. I'm an experienced rancher, obviously, but I'm not a typical rancher, let me say. I came from a dairy farm in Ohio, but I decided to become an engineer. So I came to University of Arizona to do graduate work in engineering, did a lot of outdoor activities, and decided someday I'd like to be an Arizona rancher. I finished up there and worked in industry several years before coming to ASU as an engineering professor. I took all the ASU courses in cattle management and range management, and as a result, I started looking for buying a ranch. I had to have it close to, Tiffany, are you running the video?
Yes, I am, Chuck. Do you need me to move forward?
Okay. I looked for a close to town ranch since I needed to keep my full-time job, and found one in the Superstition Mountains. It's a very old ranch, a very historic ranch, and I ended up buying that ranch. It was had very few improvements on it, even though it's 150 years old. It used to cover all of the area of the superstitions that you hike in, all the way over to Apache Junction. But when I bought it, it was only state trust lands. So we're up against the wilderness area. We have about 10 miles of common border with the wilderness area on the ranch. But it's only had one building, and that's this building you see on your screen. Maybe 600 square foot ranch house built in 1876. That was the only building on the ranch. And so when I bought it, I had to do a lot of facilitating, making it an operating ranch. It's an all horseback ranch, which means you can drive to the ranch house, but everything else is done on horseback. Pretty rugged ranch, as you see here in this picture. This is probably taken by Tiffany. That's me on the white horse there, but there are several other riders up above on the trail that we were probably going out to read transects. When I first came, the ranch was very run down and overgrazed, had very few fences, and so first thing I had to do was to build fences in order to manage the cows properly. And it's very difficult building fences in this kind of country. You have to pack everything in to the top of mountains and so forth and stretch wire. I did that as well as building corrals. There were no corrals when I came to the ranch for processing cattle properly. And so the first order of business was to start managing the land, which we did, even though we bought cows to turn out. We were under grazed by having fewer cows than they would normally support. But this was all in the recovery of the land. And we set up transects that we read every year to monitor the progress of whether the plants are responding or not. The facilities at the ranch, I built this tack room, it's called. This is where all the equipment is kept relative to horses and cattle. And so inside, you have all the things you have. We all have a couple saddles, and we have a lot of people help us that ride with us. And so we have saddles for visitors as well. But it just has all the saddles and the bridles and so forth required to operate a horseback only ranch. You can see on top of that one pad, those are chaps for just your wrists. So I wear those all the time because you ride through a lot of bushes, and so you need to protect your face and your arms. When you're working cattle, I built all these corrals, but this is the lane we normally bring the cows or the calves up. Several gates along this lane that we can queue up the cows in small groups and keep them separated and keep them moving safely. We're approaching a loading chute that you can load big cattle trucks in. You have storage tanks for the well that's at the ranch. That's why there's a ranch there. And then as you approach the working area, which is this covered area, you see ahead of you. And the gate on your left is a gate that swings around, and it's called a tub. And this directs the cows around in groups and to line up into this queuing area that is composed of individual stalls for each, for one cow. As you go into this working area, you see gates that slide across to divide so that each cow separately. It goes across an electronic scale. And like in the dairy business, we have electronic tags. So we wind the cows and the weight gets recorded automatically and data kept. And then they go on through to the squeeze chute, vaccinations and what the cows, AI or preg testing or whatever. These are the prods cows. We don't allow electric prods on our ranch. These have little marbles in them so you can make a noise for the cow and tap them or whatever you do. Keep them moving through the process.
Can I interrupt you 1 second? You have a question, and I think it was more relevant to the beginning, but so that's why I want to ask you now. The question that came in is, how is your ranch impacted by wildfires that go through that area every year? How does slurry drops impact your herd's grazing?
That is a very relevant question. In that last week, 2/3 of our ranch burned. It came off the Forest Service, lightning caused. Thank goodness. You really feel bad if it's man caused. But it burned by the ranch house, the headquarters, but the firefighters kept it away from the buildings. So it went around ours and went on down towards Route 60. That's the worst case we've ever had. I think it's out now. Luckily, the cows were in the lower pasture, what we call the lower pasture, which was not directly affected by the fire.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'll start this back up. Once I get there, we go. We'll keep going.
We do processing. We brand the calves about when they're 2 months old. This is a branding iron. All cows in Arizona are required by the state to have a brand on them. This one is a little different in that most people use a hot branding iron, which leaves a scar on the cow, and that's how you identify its ownership. This is a freeze brand. You put it in liquid nitrogen and then shave the cow and put it on. And what that does is to damage the roots of the hair so it grows back out white. And so on black cattle that I have, then the brand is displayed as white hair. But when you slaughter them and use that hide, it's a nice smooth hide, so you don't have a big scar in the middle of your couch. We tag all the calves with both electronic tags and tags. This shows an adult tag. This cow would have been born in 2018. That's what the 8 stands for at the beginning. But all the cows have tags and electronic tags, and so they're all computerized, just like in the dairy process, and all the data is kept on computer and processed. The calves have a smaller one, so they get branded at age 2, but we ride when they're being born and put a tag in their ear so we know when they're born, who their mother is, and when we process them, then they already have a tag. We put electronic tag in when we brand, and so we keep a record of just of all the cows and the calves. But you can see them in the pasture, and the cows, you know how old they are as well as who they are, and you have records you can carry with you, computer records.
Okay.
So,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Chuck. I have a couple more questions. One question is, how many head of cattle are you running on your ranch?
The ranch is on state trust land, so the state people define how many cows you can carry. Ours is for 208 adult cows, and so that includes the bulls, so we typically have 200 cows and 8 or so bulls.
Perfect. And then the next question I thought was good, and normally you have a little bit more time in our live tours to share with us this answer, but the question was, how do ranches get their ranch name? And this person assumed, and they assumed correctly, that many times it's related to the brand they use. So if you want to share a little bit more about the history of the Quarter Circle U and the Soap Pot brand, I think that would be interesting.
Cows are owned by their brand. That means that any cow that has my brand on it, I own, wherever it is. And so typically ranches were named for their brand. Our ranch is called the Quarter Circle U Ranch. It didn't come to the ranch until cows were bought in 1891, and it remained on that ranch for a long time. But it was sold with the cows about 50 years ago, and so the brand I got with the ranch was different than the quarter circle U. It's still historically named the Quarter Circle U Ranch and on all the maps and so forth, but it's doesn't have the Quarter Circle U brand on the cows.
Okay. We'll get into...
Genetics are extremely important on this ranch because I try to raise the best quality I can in a very rugged country. And so I buy most of my live bulls from the Barty Bar. It's a ranch up by Winslow because they keep all the individual data. They sell about 200 bulls a year plus, and they have detailed data, both measured and DNA data on all of those bulls. We also artificially inseminate almost all of the cattle as they go through before we turn them in with the live bulls. So about half of our calves come from artificial insemination to the best bulls that have the characteristics, the best bulls in the country to have the best characteristics that we want to enhance our cattle with. So we AI them and then turn them in with these good bulls. This is what inside of the bull catalog would be when you go to a live sale. You have this much information on each bull. The words there give the sire and the dam of the bull that's pictured there, as well as their grandsires and grand dams on both sides. On the right-hand side, vertically, it gives physical information about the calves, its registration number, its birth date, 3/19, March 13th, 19 in this case. It gives the birth weight, the weaning weight, and RFI. That's a very important number to me. That's residual feed intake, but it's really a measure of the feed conversion efficiency. How many pounds of grass does a cow have to eat to put on a pound of weight? And that varies a factor of 3 and 4 from one cow to another. So you want very efficient cows to minimize the amount of, or in the feedlot, then you need to have a high conversion efficiency. Where it says breed down in the black line, the Barty Bar bulls are almost all crossbreds. They're mostly Angus, but that gives the breakdown of what they're registered lineage is, meaning it's 19% Galvey, 71% Angus, and 9% Red Angus, which is a different kind of Angus, obviously in color. On the bottom of the vertical column there, we'll see TN, that's the tenderness rating. This is a close-up of all that data. And most of it is low for a different bull, but the RFI, you can see in that vertical column, it was measured, the other one was pending. The -1 means that this bull, on the average, compared with all the other 200 bulls, required less, or 1 pound less per day of feed to put on the average amount of weight. So this is more efficient than the average. The bottom part gives all of the DNA markers that are called expected progeny differences. EPDs, that means that they predict what the characteristics will be of the calves from this bull. The line across there under the breed percentage, that's calving age, birth weight, weaning weight, urine weight, and so forth. This is a shot Tiffany took with her horse's ears prominently in the picture. Looking back down at the ranch house, you can see the ranch buildings down there. In the distance, you can see the city of Phoenix, only 50 miles away. But this is the type of country our cows are raised in. This is on the path that we normally go through, going up to work on the ranch. Cows go up to the tops of these buildings. Cows are several generations here. Cows were raised on the ranch. This is Tiffany riding up to that pass. You can see all the grass. It looks pretty plush, but that's all annual grasses that came because of the good spring rains we had. And it's going to seed and dormant, so it doesn't have very much food value for the cows. But you can see the trail is so often used. It's bushes right in the middle of the trail, so that's why we wear chaps, leather leggings on ourselves, and why, in my case, I'll wear on my ankles or my wrists as well. So this is one of the pastures that's close to the house, and we use it as a holding pasture.
Real quick, Chuck, I just had some good questions come in, and I think I'm going to just back the video up just a smidge so we can look at this, the questions relevant to this. What are the cows actually grazing on out here? What are they eating?
Well, they eat those annual grasses when they come up and are green, and but they only last for 2 or 3 months. So you have to move the cows to where the feed is appropriate. That's why you have to have fences and move them around and rotate them. But they eat all of these bushes as well. That's called browse on the ranch. And so it's bushes. They're mostly edible by cows, probably all digestible by cows. You see a lot of cactus there, both swallows and prickly pear and choy, as I see in this picture. They occasionally will eat cactus. They'll take one of those leaves of choy or a prickly pear and just chew it up. So we can eat and digest cactus, but they prefer bushes or grass. There are perennial grasses that we have that are good year-round, and when they go dormant, they're still good nutritional value with seeds and all. And so when we measure these transects that we've set up, we measure every year, and that's what it measures. What grasses are there, what percentage of the grasses, or percentage of times that you take 200 samples in each transect. Do they appear? What are the bushes? All of the vegetation that grows there, you record. And then over the years, you can see what's increasing and decreasing and see how your management, your range management is working. And so we measure that as well as try to promote the vegetation to expand.
Okay, good answers. One last quick question, and then I'll play it again and we can talk about the dirt tank. How many times in a month do you go out and check on the cows?
Well, we work, I've been retired for 16 years, so I've been a full-time rancher for the last 16 years. And so I would say I'm there on the ranch, either at working cattle at headquarters or out checking the cows. Just about every day. That means 7 days a week usually. You're riding to check on the cows. You're mostly riding to check the fences and see if the cows, if there's any injured cows. You can do a limited amount of doctoring if you're out there, but we don't like to rope our cows. The only time we rope any of our animals is when they're 1 month old, to put a tag in their ear, and the rest of the times they're worked in the corral and confined areas so it doesn't hurt the cow or the calf or the humans involved.
Okay. Wonderful. So I'll go ahead and click back in, and we're off to the dirt tank.
And most of the water on this ranch comes from springs, and we run lines to have drinkers in remote areas from those springs. This is the only dirt tank we have. A dirt tank is just a catchment of water runoff, and this is in winter pasture where the cows are now. And that's Tiffany's husband, Jordan, walking out to try to get some cows to come out from under the trees so you can see them. But, this is just one of the many waters. This will occasionally dry up completely and go for a while. The forage out there doesn't always provide all the vitamins and minerals cows need, so we will distribute these tubs. This has salt in them for the value of the cow as well, but the salt restricts them so that they only eat enough vegetables or vitamins, minerals they need. We have to haul these tubs out, of course, and they weigh 125 pounds apiece. We have to haul them out horseback. This is Tiffany's riding up through the winter pastures where the cows are in the lower country. These are cows that we typically have. They're primarily Angus, and black is dominant, so most of the cows are black, even though they all have a little bit of crossbreed in them. You can see that the yellow tags stand out very clearly from a distance, and if we would have neighbors' cows get in, they stand out even more because they don't have a nice yellow tag in them. You can see that the cows are all in working order. That means they're not thin or fat. Our cows rarely get fat, and so they're all just healthy animals. They get fat when they're pregnant, of course, and there are some calves in this area. As Tiffany mentioned to start with, we own our calves all the way through the feedlot and then to a specialized processing plant that sells natural, high quality Angus cows. And so they have a branded product. The one who's been buying ours most recently have been Creekstone. That's just a branded product. But you can see the cows. These aren't typical Arizona cows. They're watching you, and of course they have calves on them, so they're a little more nervous than normal. But they don't run off when they see you or anything like that. If we have a cow that does that, we just, next time we have her in, we just sell her, with her calf or without. So we raise these all in a natural environment. We don't supplemental feed them. They have to graze, except when we have them in the corral is the only time that we feed them hay. But we do put out some minerals and vitamins for them to supplement. Some forage isn't as healthy as others.
I just interject a pretty good question right here, I think, Chuck.
Okay.
Do you have any predatory animals that pose problems?
Predators?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we luckily don't have any wolves yet on our ranch that we've seen. But our biggest problem is in mountain lions. Mountain lions are all over our ranch, and they mostly take calves. Very seldom will take down an adult animal. But they have a lot of rabbits and other critters that they eat on the ranch, so that they're not primarily fed by calves. But that's a constant problem. I estimate just year in, year out, I probably lose between 5 and 10% of the calves to mountain lions. But that's the only predator we have. We have a lot of deer and so forth on this ranch. And of course, they benefit from the land improvements we've made. The mountain lions Very few people hunt them, even though the season is all year long. And it's easy to get a permit to hunt mountain lions. They're just very, very clever creatures. And you very seldom see them live. You see their tracks every place, but you can bet they're watching you and the cows. So that's a loss of calves.
Okay. Another good question, you mentioned it earlier a little bit, but I thought you could maybe go into it just a little bit more. How do you monitor for cattle-related degradation of the landscape? And do you do any earthworks for land management?
No, we don't do any moving of dirt. It's a natural environment, and that's what we want to keep, but also enhance it. And so it's a cow movement. So, and these transects that we read every year have indicated that the range condition has increased considerably over these 40 years, certainly. They improved extremely rapidly when we first bought the ranch, but because it was overgrazed. They just weren't responsible ranchers. And they didn't have the cross fencing required to move the cows around and have them in the right pasture at the right time for forage. But the trees and the bushes, we have a lot of jojoba, for instance, and extremely good cattle browse. But it's been increasing. We monitor that.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions, but I just wanted to quickly give a little plug. I was going to bring my video back up for the nutrition that beef provides to us. So Chuck works really hard out here to raise a healthy calf or healthy animal. And so that product in turn turns into a healthy, nutritious, and delicious product for us to eat too. So something that I think we need to keep in mind is that beef contains 10 essential nutrients, 3 of those being zinc, iron, and protein. Zinc is really great for health. You know, when you're feeling down, oftentimes people will say, go take a zinc supplement that helps with your immune system. You can get that naturally through beef. Iron is great for your blood, and obviously protein is great for lots of things, keeping you active, keeping your muscles strong. So beef is definitely an important part of a healthy, balanced diet. We believe that it needs to be surrounded by fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and dairy, of course. So that was just my little plug for a little bit on the nutrition side when it comes to us at the end of the day. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add, Chuck?
Only maybe to mention the quality of the beef that comes off this ranch for such a harsh condition. Typically, nationally, the percentage of prime rated beef in the country is 3%. 3% of all the slaughtered cows are prime, and we average 50%. So that's a huge increase. And the certified Angus, if you're not familiar with that term, that requires premium choice. So upper values of choice meat. And again, that's way above the national average. So that's our measure of the product that we produce.
Wonderful. Yeah, Chuck has worked really hard to, as I read in his bio at the very beginning, to raise a healthy, really high quality product in a terrain that's maybe not, people wouldn't think it was suited for it. But thank you so much, Chuck, for being with us today. Thank you, everybody.